Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. This is April, and this is for the fall photo trip participants, whether you're bringing a cell phone, which I'm recording this on, or you're bringing a larger camera. It's time now to start thinking about if you've got all the accessories, depending on what type of camera you choose to bring. Make sure that you've got your battery charger set out. Think about how you're going to pack your items for travel. As you can see, this is actually try to hold it here. This is a backpack. I picked this up a few years ago during back to school season. So there's nothing on it that says Canon, nothing on it that says Sony. It is just a backpack. You're going to see my messy little work area. It's just a backpack, and it's made by Swiss Gear. It works really well. It's got a compartment I can put my laptop in. It's got plenty of space. It's wide enough at the bottom, but I measured it and it meets the requirements to go under the seat of any airplane, because what you want to make sure is that your camera gear stays with you. And we also just want to pack a little compactly. I'll be honest, if I get too many lenses and too many filters and too many gadgets, I'm not able to focus on the scene in front of me. And sunrise and sunset, the light changes so fast. And I will be honest, I mean, sometimes throughout the day, we're kind of buzzing along and moving from point A to point B. And we're in a group of 6 to 8 to possibly 10. We'll see how this goes. Each time we get out of the van, there's that get out of the van time, you have your camera. So keep your camera in your lap when we're riding in the van and think about what that next shot is going to be. Get a lightweight tripod if you'd like. Again, it's one more thing you have to travel with. But I think for the sunrise shots and for evening, if you want to go out and kind of get the last light of day. And we will be staying near a lot of places that have water, literally right outside your door. So at night, you might see flickering lights across the pond, the lake, the inlet. So having a tripod of some kind is going to help extend the ability to get better pictures that aren't super grainy. This is probably a little crooked, but I wanted to also point out, someone was asking about lenses that I'm taking. And this little red case that I have here was actually I think it was a giveaway for Estee Lauder. And what I found was, if you can see, it's kind of solid, and I actually pack my camera in it instead of another bulkier piece. And it's able for me to hold lenses. Now, I will carry it in the backpack or a day pack, but for just kind of breaking it down and putting it in my suitcase, it does work really well. You got to find something that works for you. This is my Tamron travel lens. This is the lens I took to Egypt last year. I took this, but I often use the Sony. It was more inconspicuous. But I did take this to Europe for a month in Europe, because it does go from 18 all the way to 400. So it'll do a wide landscape, kind of like the picture there that you can see. That's actually on canvas. That was from Venice. That was shot probably with the wide portion of this lens. It adjusts, it zooms in, it zooms out. So you have a lot of options for getting the close up. And when we stop, getting, say, the whole lighthouse, the little island, and some of the water on either side, or zooming in and maybe just getting the lighthouse or just getting a particular tree. So it gives you a little more options. Let me change this a little so you can see better. Also, this is the other lens I would recommend for landscape. It's a 10 to 18 millimeter. This is definitely a wide angle lens. It's for wide angle landscapes. It's going to get, because it's only 10 to 18, it tends to be a little bit sharper than the zoom lens, because it's just focusing on that 10 to 18 stretch. Whereas when you've got a travel lens, there's going to be areas when you zoom on it, that tend to get sticky. Sometimes it doesn't always focus at some of these particular points. It requires a little bit more maintenance to maintain one of these lenses. But for an all-around lens, this one is vibration control. I turn it off if I'm using it on the tripod, but if I'm hand holding, that vibration control goes on. It's got an autofocus versus the manual focus. So again, it's helping me since my eyes aren't the best. The lock is so that it won't just swing out. Right now it can on its own twist out, but if I put the lock on, then it keeps it from twisting and moving out, which when I pack it, generally I put it into that lock position. You can tell I've also got a lens shade. This one's been taped because the lens shade actually saved my lens this summer. I took a small trip. The camera kind of slid out of my hand and across a concrete, kind of a cobblestone courtyard. This cracked, but see the way it's kind of like a baseball cap, it kept my lens protected. The other thing I always suggest with every single lens I purchase, I'm adamant about this, it's saved countless lenses, is a UV filter. And it's a 0. It's just clear. So if I take this off, it's clear. There's no polarizing. It's a clear piece of glass. It does get smudgy, but then my lens of my camera is far more protected. It's one more piece of lens, just like wearing a pair of safety goggles when you're working with cutting things, or even if you're out, weed whacking or mowing the lawn, some little pebble or rock pops up. If you've got your safety glasses on, it hits that, it's protecting your eyes. Think of it the same way as you would with your lens. I make sure to always have a 0 filter. And the other thing I do is I always be sure before I travel is to make sure I'm traveling with a backup, an extra 0 filter, because I can't tell you, like I said, how many times I've dropped the lens, the filter gets cracked, I can take it off, and right away I want to have a new filter to put on, a new protective, pair of goggles essentially for my camera. So here's UV protector. It's, again, you can see the picture. It keeps your lenses, like I said, I don't know how many times I've saved an expensive lens with having one of these UV protectors on. And honestly, you don't have to spend tons of money for one of these. Go on Amazon, but order it ahead of time and make sure you get the right size for each of your lenses. Like this 72 fits this lens, so I have an extra for that. This 10 to 18 lens, which is, like I said, the extra wide angle lens, or again, this works well if you're going inside a building and you want to get wall to wall, you want to get that whole interior shot. It's beautiful for landscapes. I really like it if there's an interesting cityscape. There's a couple places that will have reflections. Hopefully it'll get, that wide angle, that wide image, not something that's just only this much. You're going to get a lot more edge to edge. So this one too, I have a UV, but as you can see, this one is a 67 millimeter. So it needs a different size filter. So I have to make sure that I have one for each and make sure if I've had these out and using them that yes, that's what I put back in here. Unfortunately, as you can see in this container, I've stuck a circular polarizer. So I will have to see if I have another 67 that's not actually I've got a neutral density filter, which we'll talk about that. This is a graduated neutral density filter. So again, you need one for each lens that you think you might use it on. It's kind of like two pieces, and I don't know if you can kind of see that it's twisting. It's got these different dots, and once I put it on the camera, it's like if you could adjust the shades on your windows and they would be a little hole, darker till it went to blackout. It's essentially different layers. If you've traveled on one of those airplanes that the newer models where the the window of the airplane has different darkening mechanisms. So pretty soon the window is all the way to dark, even though outside it's daylight. That's what this filter does, this neutral density. It's called a graduated ND filter. And what I like about it is if I'm photographing a waterfall and the sky is bright, I can now adjust down so I get that milky look of the waterfall with the fall foliage. It really helps to be able to do some of those shots. So this might be something that you're interested in getting. I'll send the link out to, again, you want to look for graduated ND filter and think about which lens you want to put it on. For me, I know we photograph a waterfall. This again on the front, fader ND. You can spend a lot on these. You can spend a little bit on these. Maybe get one and play with it since you have time yet this summer. Take it outside. I know some people were experimenting with using it during the eclipse, but just turn all the lights on in your bathroom, for instance, and turn on the faucet, let the water run, and focus your camera at that water and play with your settings on your camera so that you can play with getting just the droplets super sharp, or slowing that water down, which is what this ND filter allows you to do to kind of get that really pretty milky effect that some people like in the fall. So those are some tips on what I have. Again, your cell phone works great for anything we're going to do, but for more advanced photos, for something a little bit more fancy, again, and I always put together a book at the end. So hopefully it might be a couple months after our trip, but I will put together a book after the trip. And I am going to tease you with this photo here, which will probably be in the write-up, but we are going to visit Nubble Lighthouse. This is, again, where you may want a choice of options for how you photograph it, because the lighthouse sits out on this island. You've got the water in between, and then we're standing back here on these rocks. So if you have a wider angle lens, you can get more water off to each side, whereas depending on what lens you have, you might only be zooming in just on this combination of the lighthouse and the outbuildings and whatever the sky might be doing. So there's a lot of, this is one of my favorite lighthouses. I'm super excited to take you guys there. And who knows what the weather will be, but I always say there's always great options for photography in New England. So talk to you soon, guys. Enjoy the video, and we'll be chatting soon.